One of the very best websites that I've found in order to get information about your community is one called MissionInsite. Now this is a site that is a premium site, but the Presbytery of Tampa Bay does pay for our churches to be able to access it. Now a lot of folks have got trouble figuring out how to access it, so before I tell you any more about MissionInsite and how you can use it, I do want to show you how to register and get your own account information. Now, the first thing that you're going to want to do is go to the website MissionInsite.com, spelled I-N-S-I-T-E, so MissionInsite.com, and then click on Registration Information. From here, you're going to click on Register. Then you need to enter in the agency account number, and that's something that we have at the Presbytery office. This is also something that you may or may not have from previous mailings and things like that, but go ahead and enter in that account number and click Submit. And it's going to take you to a page that looks like this. It'll show you our agency name, Presbytery of Tampa Bay. And then you just need to select your church. So let's say that we wanted to do something for, let's go with St. Andrews, Dunedin. So we'll look at Dunedin, and then we've got a choice between First and St. Andrews. So we'll go ahead with St. Andrews, and then we're just going to register. We'll fill out your name, first and last name, your role in the church, your email address, your username and password that you would like to use, so you get to choose that, and then you're more or less good to go. Accept the terms and click Register, and that will allow you to log in to MissionInsite. So once you have your login information, what you need to do is click on Login, and of course then you need to fill in your information and click Login. Now once you log in, you'll be shown a message like this that basically will give you a lot of videos that you can watch very similar to this. If you want to learn more about how to use this, I'm going to not do that and just kind of show you more or less how this ought to look. I'm logged in with an account that used to belong to Hyde Park Pres, so that's highlighted there. Your church ought to be highlighted so that you can find it, but this is basically a layer of information over top of Google Maps, and the primary way that you would use this is to define your neighborhood and then learn about what preferences your neighborhood has that you may or may not know about. For instance, do you know how many people live in your neighborhood? Do you know how many school-aged children there are in the vicinity around your church? Do you know what these people's opinions are about things like giving to religious institutions, or things like their interests and hobbies that you might use in order really to reach out to these people and try to form relationships with them? So in the case of this particular church, I'm going to show you how to draw a map around it and then how to interpret the data that that map really generates. So what we're going to do is click on Shapes, and then we've got a couple of choices. The easiest thing to do is to draw a radius. I would recommend about 2 miles, and then just select a center point on the map. You can just click on your church, and there you go. You've got a fairly representative idea of the immediate neighborhood that you're looking at. Now, your church, the area that it serves, may not be a perfect circle. In fact, it usually is not. So what you need to do if this isn't going to work for your exact neighborhood, for instance, this particular church, Hyde Park, isn't really reaching out to downtown Tampa. It's more reaching out to South Tampa, this area. So what we would want to do is do a different shape. So you can draw a polygon, and what you can do there is essentially just draw a shape by clicking, and it can be any shape that you want. I'm just kind of drawing one that would broadly be seen as kind of the South Tampa area. And I'm going to go ahead and at this point click on Predefined Report. So I've got this shape that is considered the kind of neighborhood for this church. And you can choose different reports. I usually just go with the Executive Insight. That is fairly complete without being overwhelming in the amount of information that it gives. It may take a few seconds to run the report. Usually it's less than a minute. And it's going to load that as a PDF, which is great because then you can share that with your session. You can share that with maybe the staff of the church, that kind of thing. And really get a better idea of what's going on. Now I do want to take you through just for a minute here and show you how to interpret and understand this report. Now there's several major sections that the report covers. Mostly it's demographic information, but there is some really interesting information as well about religious preferences, as well as the cultural type of people that you're going to find in the neighborhood around your church. So that's really important to understand these results, the mosaic type, and the religious preferences are pretty interesting too. So I just want to show you the rest of the report very quickly though. Typically what it's going to show you is the number of people living in that area. The very important thing to note is the projected change. So from 2015 to 2020, this area is expected to grow about 6.5%. So that's actually really pretty good. Of course, that's just a theory, but that's the way that their models are predicting. And you'll see that with a lot of the data here. Generally speaking, growing areas are better. This is the racial ethnic breakdown to this particular area. It's mostly white. Very little diversity really in South Tampa. I'm surprised about that. I thought it would be slightly more diverse. The age trends of this particular area seem like they are going to actually be heading up, which is not a huge surprise. People tend to age as years go by, and but the area itself is not going to be seeing, for instance, an influx of college students or something like that. One of the more interesting areas is where it breaks down the number of kids, because this of course tells you a lot about the families in the area and also the retirees in the area, the folks that you know, it may significantly impact the way you choose to do ministry if you know that there are just a ton of youngsters being born in your neighborhood. That could be a perfect opportunity for Mothers of Preschoolers program or something like that. But this information tells you, you know, approximately what the figures are going to look like this year and over the next 10 years, you know, just as a projection. This is more or less the same information, school-age children and their trends. Household income, of course, that is something that is of interest, at least academically. It doesn't really make a difference because you're still going to be doing ministry to the people in your neighborhood more or less, but it is good to know, you know, kind of what the demographics of the people around you are. So the average income for this area is actually quite high, which is, I guess, to be expected. The household and family income trends are broken down in pretty good detail, and again, it's really important to note what's growing and what's shrinking. So here it's the 200,000 or more a year folks are growing in this area, and pretty much everything else is shrinking. So the other data here is pretty darn interesting, but I'm actually going to just kind of skip through this for now and head on to the Mosaic report, because I think that's very important to understand. The Mosaic segments are basically sort of cultural segments that this company has come up with. So these are sort of fake cultural groups, or they're not really fake, but they're identified by this company. They're not necessarily, people wouldn't necessarily see themselves as being part of these groups. But as we all know, America is a place of many different cultures, and there are a lot of these similar folks that tend to live in similar places. For instance, folks that would tend to send their kids to private school might all live in the same area, and folks that have maybe trouble with sending their kids anywhere would also live kind of in similar areas. And a lot of these folks have got other commonalities that can really help us do ministry to them. So in this particular area, what we see are a few Mosaic segments, or Mosaic groups as they're called, that are really highly prevalent in this particular area of town. So 20% of the people in this area, South Tampa, would fall under this particular segment. Now, what does that mean? Oh my gosh, singles and starters striving single scene. That is almost entirely meaningless unless you go back to the MissionInsite website and kind of look it up. So what we're basically looking to do is try to figure out what the top 30 to 50% of folks in the area are like. This is actually pretty diverse, but we see maybe the top 30% here is these two. So we've got singles and starters, O54, and thriving boomers, E19. So in order to understand what the heck that's talking about, what we want to do is go back to the website. Now, just really briefly, I do want to kind of explain what's going on here. 20% or almost 20% of people in this area fall under this segment type, but only 3.5% of the state does. So it's about 5.6 times more likely to find this particular group of people in this area than you would in the normal part of the state. And that's what these numbers mean. So what does it actually mean to be in this segment type, though? What you're going to do is go to MissionInsite, and you're going to go back to the regular page. So there's the main page. I think that you can find this from the other page as well, but you're going to go back to the main page and click on Resources. And under Resources, you're going to click on Mosaic. So on this page, you can find the descriptions of all of the different Mosaic data, the Mosaic groups that you see there. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. It's a huge document, actually. But as it's loading here, you can see all of these different groups that have been defined by these professional companies that use this information to try and market to people. And we're going to use this information to try and reach them with the gospel. So what we saw there was O54, driving single scene. So only 1.29% of the country would fall under this, this label. And what we're going to do is, usually you can click on these and it'll take you right to there, but it's still loading everything. So I'm going to scroll down and see if I can find that. Okay, so what this is going to really show you is what are these folks like? Just generally speaking, from 10,000 feet, what kind of magazines do these folks read? What kind of movies do they go to? How are they most likely to be reached? Now, this is kind of broad, generic material. It's still good to read and just try to get a feel for the people living in the neighborhood. It's only about 3 pages of material per type, and it's also a great idea to print this out and share it with whoever you're working with, like whatever council or session or committee or team that you happen to be working with, because it is pretty interesting stuff as far as trying to get to know who these folks are. Because there's a lot there about attitude. These people, or this particular group of Mosaic type tend to view themselves as liberal. They support liberal ideas and tolerance in religious matters, mostly affiliated with the Democratic Party. I mean, that's kind of useful stuff to know. Now, another thing that's very important is understanding how different groups use different types of media, like are they more likely to read the newspaper or are they more likely to be online? That has obvious implications. Now, that's interesting, but it's not nearly as important as a resource called the Mission Impact Guide. Now, the Mission Impact Guide takes this data, this interesting stuff about the different Mosaic types, and applies it directly to ministry. This is amazing stuff. This is very, very interesting. So what we're going to do is look for our O's. Let's see, it's right at the top there. So O54. And again, this is only maybe 5 pages of material, so it's not that much reading to do per group. But this is going to tell you spiritual insights about the folks in this group who have found Christ, who have found faith a serious part of their life, or if there's not a lot of people in the group who are serious about faith, at the very least, what you're going to find in here is strategies that have worked to really connect with these folks. So what their perspectives are on religion, and really what kind of church they might be looking for. So it's very, very useful in making high-level strategic decisions about reaching the community. So let's look for just a minute about what kind of information we find in this file. So what you see here is just a very, very brief overview of this this group. And this kind of rings true. High drive for affluence, progressive, they like personal growth. Typically, you're going to find out their preferences for leadership, hospitality. In other words, what do they expect as far as the church being hospitable to them? Worship style, education preferences, small group preferences, how best to reach out to them, and technology, how they tend to view technology and property, as well as a few other items that I think are really pretty important, like communication. So this is well worth your read. It's well worth your time to go into. But there's one other part of this that I did want to give you a quick overview of. And it wasn't actually the charitable giving practices. This is clearly a good thing to view. It's clearly a good thing to know about, but really it's not as interesting to me as number 12, which is the survey questions on religious preferences. So this is really interesting stuff. Now each area, they are able to kind of extrapolate what the answers would be using some kind of math and statistics that that is at this point in my career beyond me, but it shows some of the things that they might be interested in. For instance, marriage enrichment is considered well above the average for folks in this area. That's something that they would be very interested in. Or here, cultural programs like drama, art, music, holiday programs. That's stuff that the church needs to know if it's going to effectively reach the community, this particular community, because another community is going to have totally different preferences. So otherwise, they tend to be more or less middle of the road here, it looks like. But you can really find a lot of extremely interesting information by using MissionInsite. It's free for you. We've already paid for it, so it's a good idea to go ahead and use. If you don't have our mission information, like our agency information for the site, and you don't have a login yet, please just respond to the email that gave you the link to this video, and I'll provide that for you. Again, this is totally free to members of the Presbytery of Tampa Bay. There's so much more that you can do with this. There's really just a whole lot that you can get as far as information goes. You can break things down by neighborhood. You can break things down, basically by block, to see really in detail what's going on in your area. And if you need any further help with this, you can ask me, or you can ask a representative of the CCV or Commission on Church Vitality. I hope that this was helpful, and I also hope that you'll take the time to get to use this really powerful resource for ministry. God bless.